Hello, I am Betsy Carpenter, a proud member of the Smith Class of 1993 and the Associate Vice President for Development at the college. It is my pleasure to share with you, the college's most loyal donors, this panel discussion from the 2022 reunion, featuring four of our stellar students and moderated by Dean of the College and Vice President for Campus Life, Boyshaki Taylor. The event offers a glimpse inside the Smith student experience of today. Dean Taylor brings to her two roles tremendous energy, flexibility, and a keen sense of what students need to be successful. Her work to transition campus back to fully in-person learning during the spring 2022 semester is hugely impressive, particularly given that she came to Smith during the pandemic in July 2020. We're so happy to have her here. Also at reunion, President Kathleen McCartney spoke about the importance of financial aid. She is determined to make it possible for any qualified student who wants to come to Smith to be able to attend, regardless of family resources. We can all take pride in our alma mater's decision to replace loans with grants, starting next fall for all undergraduates. This move puts us in a select group of schools. And by the way, Smith is the only women's college in the group, and allows us to address access, racial justice, and equity in a powerful way. Investing in our students sends a clear message that we believe in their potential and want to do everything we can to support their ambitions. We could not have made this move without the support of our alums, and we are tremendously grateful. Reaction to this announcement has been overwhelmingly positive, both from alums and the press. At the end of this recording, we have included links to a public radio Marketplace Morning Report interview with the president and to articles in the Boston Globe and Black Enterprise for those interested in learning more. I know you will enjoy hearing from these four students about their experiences on campus and the impact that financial aid has had on their education. We are excited to be able to offer you this opportunity to connect directly with Smithies of today. Thank you again for your generous support of Smith College.
It is such a delight to be part of the reunion and be with all of you in person for the first time, as I am about to finish my second year at Smith. I started in July 2020. I distinctly remember on July 1st, I called Kathy McCartney and I said, "Hey, it's my first day. Can I please come to campus?" And she said, "Well, campus is closed." I'm like, I just want to step foot on this campus and I'll leave. And I'm like, how, something must be open. And it was not. There was nobody on campus. But, I got to see the campus in all its beauty. And it was such a privilege. And I carried that sense of privilege. A little bit about myself. I came here to the United States long time ago, at the turn of the century, as an international student. And then fast forward 22 years, here I am. Why Smith is so special to me is when I was growing up in pre-internet India, going to college there in the 90s, there was no women's studies program. So what brought me to the United States was higher education pursuing women's studies. So when my daughter went to college in 2019, this opportunity at Smith was sort of felt to me like a full circle of why I came to this country and why Smith at this particular moment. My 2 years, and particularly seeing and working with the students, the thing that comes to my mind the most is a line from Toni Morrison, and I'm going to paraphrase. She once said, "You should always be willing to dream up the world as it should be." That dreaming is active work. It is an active action that I have seen all of our students take, all of you take, by being here, by being partners in making this institution a place of aspiration, caring, equity, and transformation. But I also want to share a few really critical things from my colleague, Joanna May. We are so grateful for all of your participation in the Alumni Admission Committee. And I bring this to this particular moment. We have the highest application this year. The numbers of applications we received have basically doubled in the last 10 years. And then last year, we had a 30% admission rate, which was like the lowest or the best so far. And this year it's at 22%. So that kind of selectivity is really inspiring. As we come out of these 2 difficult years, it's something to really look forward to as we also start preparing this summer to welcome another class of 2026, of about 624 students. And there's another really important thing about this incoming class I would love to share is that we are welcoming a little over 600 students from 38 countries, 43 states, plus Washington, D.C. and Puerto Rico. And about a third of the class identify as students of color, and 14% of the class are international students. We are also going to have the most students this year who identify as first in their family to come to college, and also the highest percentage of early decision. Almost 40% of the class is early decision. So yes, on one hand, it has been a very difficult 2 years for us, for the country, for the world. We continue to struggle with issues of climate change, equity and social justice, the widening wealth gap in this country, the political polarization, and challenges around women's reproductive rights as it comes into the forefront, along with the war happening in Western Europe. So it is compounding, but at the same time, we still continue at Smith the effort, with our faculty, with our staff colleague, all our students, to try to dream up the world as it should be. So in my role as Dean of the College, I am responsible for all of residential life, student engagement, orientation programs, athletics, some of our centers, including the Lewis Global Studies Center, the Wharton Center for Leadership, Lazarus Center for Career Development, Design Thinking, Conway Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation, Office of Disability Service, and then I partner very closely with Professor Floyd Chung, who oversees our Office of Equity and Inclusion. It is, again, it is a lot of responsibility that I try to take very seriously in my role, but it's the partnership and the collaboration that makes serving in this particular position such a reward. So I'm going to turn it over right now to the 4 wonderful students we have here. If you will share with us your name, where you're from, your major, and what brought you to Smith.
Hi, everyone. My name is Chi Chi. I am an international student from Taiwan. I'm a junior. Well, I'm rising senior, and my majors are English and education. And what brought me to Smith was, well, first of all, the financial aid. That's great, if I'm going to be honest. But I really, back home in Taiwan, I had been offered places at certain programs in Taiwanese universities. But what really made me want to come here was the incredible liberal arts environment that Smith has. The truth is, like, back home in Taiwan, I would have had a great education, but it would have been all laid out for me. There would be classes that were selected for me before I even entered university. And the fact that we have such academic freedom here at Smith to do all kinds of different educational opportunities and truly make these 4 years my own, that was what really attracted me here. And yeah, Smith has really allowed me to do that.
Hello, my name is Paige McKinnon. I am a 23J student. So that means I'll be graduating next January. And I am a Russian, Eastern European, and Eurasian studies major. Actually, Chi and I took Russian together our first year. So it's very fun to be up on stage with her here as a senior and a rising senior. And I also study government. And what brought me to Smith is I grew up near Bowdoin College, and I knew that I wanted a liberal arts education. I wanted to be in a supporting and inclusive environment, and I wanted a place that could really build me as a person into someone who's like really confident and really strong and could basically do whatever I wanted to do. Fun fact about me: when I was in 8th grade, I decided I wanted to be Secretary of State, and so that was like my number one goal applying to schools. I was like, where is this going to work? Who's going to best prepare me? And I came to Smith because my brother had a lacrosse tournament nearby, and my parents were like, you have to go and tour all these colleges. And I was like, no, I really don't want to. And I stepped foot in Smith. I'm like, wow, it's gorgeous. And I met my tour guide and we were walking around, and I knew like right then, I was like, this is the place where it's going to work. And then a little bonus on that, I'm a member of the crew team, and we had just gotten a new coach, Claire Doyle. If you see her around, she's amazing. And I met with Claire, and she's like, my goal is to build the best community I can around a sport that we all love. And so I was like, perfect. That works for me. Secretary of State, confidence building, community building. I can do this. And so that's kind of what brought me to Smith. And it's definitely checked all those boxes and has lived up to the little promise I made myself. So.
Hi, I'm Haley December. I am studying art history and design theater with a concentration in museums. I was born in Windsor, Ontario, Canada, but I grew up in Orlando, Florida, and now I live in northern Michigan. The question of like, where am I from is like a ping pong game. But I loved other places I've lived in, of course. And really what drew me to Smith was all of the different communities of support. I like to joke sometimes. I'm also a tour guide, so I'll joke on my tour and I'll say, when my tour guide came and told me that there were 16 dining halls on Smith's campus, I said, I'm going to sign the papers. I'm good. But it was really like more than that. I found Smith when I was a sophomore. My sister is a year older than me, and so she was touring Smith. Wasn't even on my radar. College wasn't on my radar at the time. But I came and in a very similar experience, just coming onto campus and hearing about the support that comes from the houses, the support that comes from professors, the support that comes from athletics and clubs and organizations on campus. And then all of those community support that you build continue even after you graduate with all of like the wonderful alum and everything. And like being a part of that community and that network really just drew me in. I knew I was going to be supported throughout my entire time at Smith and even beyond that. And so that really sold me, and like just echoing what both of you have said, that's really just come true so far. I'm very excited about it.
Hi, my name is Eugenia Rogers. I'm from Sierra Leone, a small country in West Africa. And I just finished my freshman year, class of 2025. And what drew me to Smith, I have a whole list. But number one, my high school, I went to African Leadership Academy in Johannesburg, South Africa. And there were 2 Smith alums in that school. One of them taught me African studies. Her name is Priscilla Takondo Simpere. And that woman, her aura was just amazing. She was phenomenal. And I was just like, I need to go to the place where she went to, full stop, period. And so that's one thing. And I also wanted a college that prioritizes women's empowerment. That was big on my radar. And of course, the financial aid package was amazing. I applied early decision, and Smith was like, we want you. And I was like, I want you too. So here we are. And lastly, I did virtual tours. And oh my God, the Smith campus was so amazing. I fell in love with all the photos and the videos I watched online. I was just like, I showed every member of my family, like, this is the college I'm going to be going to.
I'm sure all of you can hear the similarities and sort of the uniqueness of what brought each one of you to Smith. What have been, and I know all of you have had different time on campus, but so far, what's been your favorite class or professor and why?
I actually just finished this class 2 weeks ago, and I walked into this professor's class at the beginning of this year. I took Chinese politics with Dr. Sarah Newland, and I had spent the past few years avoiding taking her classes because I'd heard first year that she makes you write these really intense essays in class, and she's a really hard grader, and there are other ways that you can, get those credits done. But after taking her Chinese politics class, I was like, wow, I learned so much. I'm a much better student after that. So she came up with this curriculum on her own. It was actually originally done as one of the longer J-term classes last year. So it was taught virtually. And it's called Research Design Methods for Social Sciences. And it basically teaches you how to conduct social science research, which is something before taking her class I didn't think was something that I would be very interested in. And now after taking your class, I felt super inspired by all the work that a lot of really important political scientists are doing across the world, and B, that you can create some really good social change by doing some really great social research. And so I'm lucky enough that I'm getting to work in her lab this summer, and it definitely inspired me to pursue a kind of social research track with the rest of my life. It was a really intense course, but I walked out of it knowing so much more, and also knowing so much more about how we can learn from each other, how, elections in a small town in South Africa can reflect the way that we conduct our large metropolitan elections in the United States, and how we can kind of use that data to inform how humans operate and how we can be better as a community.
Choosing one class is very stressful. Two of them came to mind, so I'll keep it a little brief. The first is a class that my advisor teaches, although she wasn't my advisor at the time. It was called Decolonize This Museum. The professor is Dana Leibson, and it was probably the first time that I really got to put a lot of interests together. In my senior year of high school, I did a mock TED Talk on the impact of Indigenous mascots, and when I came into Smith, I knew I wanted to be an art history major. And at the time, really just those things weren't connecting together. And of course, the thing is, you can sort of tell by the title of the class, this really put those together, where I started moving away from slide decks of just, here's an artwork, here's the artist, let's talk about it. And now we're talking about how can we present this work of art in a museum, and how do audiences interact with it, and how is it being taught to school-age children versus adults that are coming versus senior communities that are coming in, all of these different ways that people are interacting with it, whether it's just seeing it or a label, and really just thinking about those levels and concepts has really shaped the way I approach museums and my major now, which has been incredibly helpful. And of course, why she's now my advisor, because I really admire her and respect a lot of the work that she's doing. In my mind now, it feels very normal. But of course, even when I go into job interviews with museums talking about concepts, it feels sometimes novel to them. They'll ask me my favorite artist, and I was like, talk about concepts and things. And I feel like that's a very Smith thing to say. I'm like, I don't have a favorite artist. I just deal with concepts. It definitely reshaped my thinking, and I definitely attribute that to a lot of my museum learning. And I would say on the flip side of that, in my theater major, the class is called T200. It is the theater production class, and it is, I talk about it so much because it really is what got me into the theater major, because it is a very hands-on class. There's one meeting per year, and all people, faculty come in from costumes, set, lighting, and sound, and they tell you what productions they're working on this year, and they tell you what sort of students they need to help with. Anyone from electricians to help hang lights for, put them up during tech weekend, take them down after the show's over, or you can be even more involved in that and going to weekly production meetings and helping out with design. And that, again, in a very similar way, sort of just opened up my mind and said, wow, here I am in a production meeting with a student who's designing the set, with a staff member who is designing the lighting, with a collaborative effort of stage management and directing and all of these different ways, where in high school it was very, leave that to the adults. And now in college, I was like, wow, look at this very collaborative effort. And it really felt like I was no longer at college. I was out in the real world, and I was really working on it. And that was another thing I really loved about that class. The ability to walk in and have somebody tell me, okay, can you go and make this projection for me? And I say, okay. So I go and I try to figure it out. But when I come back and she says, oh, do you know how to put this up onto the stage? And I say, no, the ability to help is still there. So it's the sort of give and take between independent learning and learning on the go and having this role, where the work that you're doing and you're learning is immediately reflected into an actual stage production that people are seeing. But then also the help and the support is all there as well in case you need it. And so the learning process continues as well. And so through that production, I went from a projection assistant to a set designer to the head of animation for production. So even like at those points, if I don't go into theater as a career, now I have experience leading a team of people, having people meet deadlines, checking in with people, sending so many emails, all of those different things. Now I can work with my artistry, but I can also work on communication and leadership skills. So fantastic class. People love to take it. And there's just so many different levels of involvement there. And each one of them is so exciting.
I didn't mention my major earlier. I recently declared before the end of the semester, and I'm currently majoring in environmental science and policy. I'm mostly on the policy aspect of things. I didn't take a lot of science classes in high school, but I'm at Smith College. Let me challenge myself and take a natural science class. And I took Geology 101, Introduction to Art History and Processes, in my first semester. I was very hesitant about that class because I looked at the syllabus and I was like, oh my God, this might not be the best idea. But Professor Amy Rhodes, she was very, very good at her job. And I really like how enthusiastic she was about the content. And I feel like the aura the professor gives off about the work we're doing in class, it really, reflects on the students. So that was one thing that gave me courage to continue in that class. And I made very good friends by the end of the semester. We were like, okay, this is what we've got. We need to do this as a team, and we'll meet out of class to study together. And also, there was a big project we had to do to make a whole bedrock geology map of your hometown. I was like, wow, Sierra Leone, there's not much information on the internet about bedrock geology. What do? I was so confused. And I went to her office hours and we went over time just trying to search for an online source about the country and the bedrock geology. But she was so patient and we went through it together, and we were like, we won't leave this office hours until we have at least one source about Freetown, where I come from, the capital city. And leaving that office hours meeting, I was more confident to do that project, and I did it, and I did very well in it because of her support.
I think coming to Smith, I didn't realize it at the time, but my education back home really didn't teach me how to be an active learner. So that's actually been one of the things that I've been trying to do over the past couple of years, is to just figure out how to be an active participant in my own education and not just kind of sit there and do the assignments and receive knowledge. So I've been a little bit slow on that curve. But one of my favorite classes that I did this past semester was I did a special studies with my advisor on popular romance novels, which is my special academic interest. And so it was really great because initially, having taken all of these English classes that were very serious about, Beowulf and about, different periods, and you have all these advanced literary movements that we speak about, and it's all about close reading. Initially, I felt really nervous going out to my advisor to be like, hey, do you know anyone who studies romance novels in the Valley? Billionaire romances? I kind of want to do this type of work. And my advisor ended up saying, well, I could do this with you. This past semester, it's been really wonderful. We got the Routledge Companion to Popular Romance Research, which was just published last year. It's really cool. It's this compendium of a bunch of different research and kind of essays on popular romance fiction from all sorts of different angles. And we would just go to his office every week and we would just talk over the different types of articles. We would talk over the research that was being done. We read a couple of romances, and I got to interview a couple of romance scholars that I really, really admire. So in a way, the pandemic has been a bit of a blessing because everyone's more comfortable doing Zoom interviews. And so I got to talk to academics in Australia. There's also a bunch of Smith alums who write romances or who are heads of romance publishing houses. And so I was able to reach out to them. And that was just a really great experience for me because I was just learning to think about, well, how do I take all of these things that I've learned at Smith and how do I actually continue to study and be intellectually curious about things even after I leave Smith and there's no real syllabus, there's nobody telling me what to pursue. I feel like that class really gave me the feeling of agency, like, hell yeah, like I can do this. I don't need anybody's permission to tell me, oh, this is what makes you an expert in romance novels, or this is what makes you a scholar. You can go out and you can utilize those resources. So yeah, it was a great experience.
Can we get some book recommendations later?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I have so many.
I was going to ask the same thing. What's your favorite popular romance novel?
My favorite author is Alexis Hall, and he's very mysterious. Nobody knows who he is. But I'm actually working at his literary agency this summer. So that was actually something that Praxis enabled me to do. I was like, hey, would you like a free, like an unpaid intern, but I will be paid? And they were like, yes, of course. So Sarah McLean, I think, has a book out. It's called Bombshell. And it's actually part of the Hell's Bells series. So I think she also took some inspiration from Hell's Bells here at Smith. And what's really cool about her work is that she does historical romance. So obviously there's lots of dukes and there's lots of like fancy people, and they're all named after Smith houses. So you have, you have the Duke of Lamont, you have the Talbot sisters. She also features some like secret details about Smith College inside her historical romances. So you have the Whispering Bench on Green Street, the bench where it's curved. She has that featured in some of her romances. They're all really cool, really feminist, and just like a great amount of fun. Yeah.
Sort of switching tone. One of the questions that I have for all of you is coming back to campus after the pandemic. How has this year impacted you? Can you share a challenge and then a positive outcome?
I can go first on this one. I came into Smith as definitely as a small club of Smith super fans. I had, like I said, found Smith in 2017, and I first came to campus as a student in 2019. So it was a long 2.5 years that I was like waiting to be a student. And when I showed up, I was so excited. I was very involved in everything, and to have all of that be abruptly shut down in March of 2020 was a huge shock to my system, and definitely didn't go along with my dreams and fantasies of what my life at Smith would be like. I was very fortunate and safe with my family, and so it was just really those moments of dealing with that and just saying this is life now and making this work. But I would say it was very challenging to come back to campus and sort of integrating all of these new classes and people I hadn't seen, and people, that I had seen before, but now it's different. I came back in spring of 2021 when we had about, I think, 1,500 students came back. So it was a little bit of a hybrid. All classes were still remote, but there were some people on campus. So it was interesting to see, okay, here's a whole bunch of new first years that are here, but they're already in their second semester, so they kind of know what's going on, but they haven't lived on campus. And then some of my senior friends were still virtual, so I didn't get to see them, but I'm still seeing some other people. So I would say that was probably one of the bigger challenges in terms of coming back to campus, was really this sort of adjustment. And even when we came back in this most recent fall with everybody on campus, it felt so overwhelming because I was so used to 1,500 students on campus that it really felt like, with the new incoming class and everybody that was there, people were taking time off. I looked around and I looked at my friend. I said, I don't know who any of these people are anymore. So that was a little bit of an adjustment to really start back from nothing and start to think, how do I make friends again? How do I talk to people in class? How do I go to class? Travel time from the house instead of just opening up my laptop. There's a few things that really just feel like basic human things that I guess I sort of took for granted during my first year that now I was dealing with. But I think there's even a positive out of that, really to go from everything to nothing and building back up again really allowed me to reevaluate where I was spending my time and what I was doing. For instance, I swam my first 2 years at Smith, and I was spending 22 hours a week doing that. And when I sort of came back to campus, and at that point, I had become, I was the president of the class of 2023 for my sophomore year, and I will be again for the senior year, which is very exciting. So that was something I had done and something I was still passionate about, and that was taking up some time. I started a new role. I run This is a good one. And I run the Smith College official TikTok. I run the team people who do that. So yeah, presidency and TikTok. But all of those things kind of coming together. Where I was really feeling passionate about those and trying to fit in 22 hours of athletics. I was like, wow, this actually doesn't work anymore. And that was something I'd been swimming for 10 years, and I never really had that moment to stop and pause and reevaluate every single aspect of my life. And I think swimming was probably the biggest one of that. Other things, of like, what time do I study? When do I hang out with people? All of those sort of things. So I would say the positive of that is going back to nothing and being able to rebuild my life very intentionally and not just saying, oh, I did these things in high school, so I'm going to continue doing them. Instead, okay, here we go. I'm going to do this and I'm going to do it because I want to do it and it's very exciting to me and all of that good stuff. And I do think that time away really made me appreciate Smith even more. This is only really my second spring at Smith. And so I'm really appreciating all the different 4 seasons that happen here and all of the different aspects and clubs and orgs and so many activities that can be a part of. So being away from that and having, the virtual programming or nothing, it was really amazing to come back and say, look at all of this amazing stuff that's happening and really taking advantage of that because I know what it's like to not have any of that.
I feel like I had a similar experience with a little bit different outcome. So when we went home, I had already had a year and a half about at Smith. I was a sophomore. And when I got home, I immediately realized that the virtual learning thing definitely wasn't for me. It was hard to feel connected and engaged in my classes. So I was fortunate enough that I picked up a nannying job for a family that lived near me. And then I was able to get much more involved in my community. In the 2020 elections, I did a lot of campaigning for local candidates. And then as the elections moved on for our state race, our Senate races, and the presidency. And so in that, I got connected to a lot of different places in my community that I feel that when I was at Smith, I kind of lost touch with, which is like how my community's faring, what my neighbors need, and like what local issues I'd been kind of missing out on while I was at Smith. And like social media and all that's amazing, and you still stay connected to a certain extent, but being able to really get involved in those issues was something that I think was very important for me. And even though it wasn't happening at Smith, definitely very important in my development as a college student. And then having that time away also gave me opportunities that I probably wouldn't have had here. With a lot of opportunities being moved virtually, I know that there are a lot of limitations to being able to afford to move to a city for a short period of time, or take a break from your education to do career building internships. And so I was fortunate enough to intern with my congresswoman at one of her local offices, and that experience, I think, was definitely something that I needed in order to be able to step back in confidently and with kind of the same level of intention and care into my education. And so having the time away, while it was definitely not planned, I think it gave me a chance to kind of take a breath and try some things out to make sure that political science is what I want to do. And I did it, and I was like, yep, this is good. And then as an athlete, I'm on the crew team. I took a break from rowing, and I'd had a difficult time balancing athletics, academics, social things, all that kind of stuff. And the year away kind of made me realize that college and being at Smith is a really, really special experience that I'm only going to get to have once. And that when I step back on campus in the fall, I am going to do it with so much intention and so much love that I'm going to knock my own socks off. And so getting back on the water, I kind of had a newfound love for rowing, a newfound love for my team, for Smith Athletics. I work in residence life as well. I worked as an HCA for a year, had a kind of resident advisor. And then I moved this year to the position of coordinator of house events, where I help organize the school's social system. So when houses want to throw parties, they do it through me. And so being able to step into that role and kind of help my community have as best of a time they can coming back from a very difficult year and more, was definitely something that was challenging, but something that I appreciated a lot and was very grateful that I got to do. And so we're moving forward. We're redesigning the social system to best suit Smith as we change after the pandemic, which is a fun summer project I get to work on. But overall, I think for everyone, it was a really complex situations with a lot of good and bad afterward.
Like Paige, I also took some time off during the pandemic. So I took a gap year to stay in Taiwan. And during that time, I initially didn't want to take a gap year because growing up, I had transferred schools so many times. So Smith is the 11th educational institution that I've been at. I had transferred schools probably once every 1 to 2 years growing up. And I really, really, really wanted to finish out my 4 years with the same people who I'd entered with, all of my friends. And that was really important to me. But because of the pandemic, I was back in Taiwan and my mom was like, "You're not going back to the US. Right now, we don't really know what's going on. You're going to have to be remote in the dorms and things like that." And looking back, I think that was absolutely the correct choice. I'm really happy. She really pushed me to think more and make that decision. But initially, it was very strange to, for the first time in my life, not be a student anymore. So there was a whole year where I was working in Taiwan. I was teaching English debate at a local middle school. I was working, coaching with the national team there as well. And it was just, I think, a time, as Paige has said, a time to kind of sit back and evaluate, oh, wait, there's this whole world out there that Smith is ostensibly preparing me for. That in a way, in this little cocoon of Northampton, it is very easy to forget that there's a whole life out there in these different communities that I've kind of lost touch with, especially during my first 2 years at Smith. I think as an international student, you're often watching things happen kind of half a world away. So many like things happened in Taiwan while I was gone. So not just family things, but also, you know, when like the same-sex marriage was legalized in Taiwan, I wasn't there. I wasn't there with my community. And so that was a really interesting moment to be able to go back to Taiwan and to be able to realize, oh, like this is what I'm preparing for. And coming back to Smith, I definitely had that newfound understanding that college is such a special time to be able to have access to all of these resources and all of these people who are willing to help you. And it was also kind of a wake up call for me to be like, oh, wait, like now I have to be the one to take initiative. Like nobody is going to hand me all these opportunities, but the resources are there. And now I really know what I want to do with that.
Last fall was the first time I stepped foot on campus. Wearing the mask in a class is very different and much more difficult than just wearing it around and walking, you know, in town and stuff like that. So having to speak with it, especially in discussion classes. I remember my first year seminar participation grade, like it counted to your final grade. So I had to adjust to using the mask and speak. It's still a struggle. Also, with the pandemic, well, before Smith, I started having a lot of digital complications. And yeah, I still do. With the college stuff, it's very, very much more difficult. And I recently had like eye issues, eye problems, because all of our learning, almost all of our learning is on our devices, and we have to submit work on your laptop. You have to do your exams on your laptop. But that's one challenge we're still overcoming. And one positive outcome, I think, from all of your comments is just it has made us more robust in like adapting to change. I really loved your responses about how you manage athletics and academics. It's a lot. And personally, I think it has changed my study skills or my learning techniques, because before Smith College, it was mostly paper based. We just read and read and read, and then we take exams. But Smith style plus the COVID, it's very different. It's like a mixture of videos and documentaries, and you even read online, and then you come to class and you discuss. So it has helped me. I actually now realize that I'm more of an audiovisual learner. Like I really love when I watch something, I retain the information much more than like when the professor is in front of me.
So I want to make sure there's enough time for us to answer any questions
This is the question you'll get from any Smithy you meet going forward. What house did you live in? Or currently live in, obviously.
I live in the Franklin King house. So I currently live in the Freedmans, but my first 2 years I lived in Lamont.
I've stuck to a new house every year system. So I started in Emerson, great. I was then in Northrop, wonderful. This year I'm in Wesley House, which is, I think, my favorite so far. And then next year I will be in Gardner.
I lived in Baldwin the whole of my freshman year, and it was so convenient because it's literally like 5 or 10 minutes away from my classes.
You guys are just so great. Thank you. I'm an admission volunteer and you're fantastic. Here's my question. As an alum, when I was here 49 years ago, we had our own kitchens in each house, and there's often been a move to centralize the dining. So I'd love to hear a few words about each of your dining experience at Smith.
So I had, made my joke that when there was all those dining halls on campus, I said I was going to commit to Smith. And it is one of those things that I will visit my sister who goes to another liberal arts college, but one that does not, just has one dining hall. And it makes me so sad because there's a long line and you only have those one choices. And so I would say my experience with dining here has been very great. My family at home makes 5 meals and 4 of them are pasta. So coming to Smith, I was exposed to vegetables, which was lovely. And I do love that focus and emphasis on local farming and local agriculture. And so it sounds so silly, but like genuinely like experiencing a whole bunch of new different types of food and a whole bunch of new different types of cultural food and different local vegetables and different local aspects. So really knowing that any single time I walk into a dining hall, especially my first year, there could be something new. My first year I said, okay, no matter what's out there, I'm going to get a little bit of everything, just so that way I can try everything and see what's going on. And then now, like in years past, I'm like, okay, I know I love these types of things, or maybe I'll avoid that one today. But it's like now I've built that. So I think there's even in dining, I'm learning at Smith College, and I love it. So that's been a very good experience for me. King does have a little kitchenette in terms of like cooking something, but I definitely find that with our long dining tables in King Scales, usually we'll all congregate there if we were to have a meal together. But in general, dining, I really do love having dining halls all over campus that I don't have to walk all the way back to a specific place. I'm able to eat a whole bunch of different types of food, and being able to have that choice of, okay, maybe I do want, quesadillas or pasta for that day, things like that, where it really is just a lot of great options and a lot of great opportunities to interact with a lot of different food.
I would also say one thing that I adore about dining services is how accommodating they are for students who have dietary restrictions. A couple of years ago, I got really, really sick. We weren't really sure what was going on. And I was able to work really, really closely with dining services to make sure that there was food that I could eat. And so it was an active conversation between the Office of Disability Services, my doctor, and dining at the same time. And so it's like every day I could show up at a dining hall and maybe like, here is something that's safe for you to eat, have fun. And so it's very nice to not have to worry about those things. And the dining staff are absolutely incredible, the kindest human beings on campus. They really like take care of us. They get to know all of the students, all of our names. And I get to interact a lot with the Dawes dining staff. I'm gluten-free. And it's kind of like a little family there. And then the late night Tyler dining staff, as an athlete, we would spend a lot of time there as well. And absolutely all of them are just amazing and want you to be happy, healthy, and well fed. So it's like a big collaborative effort. And I think it's one of the wonderful, unique things about our school that the school is very, very conscientious about taking care of their students in every aspect.
I agree. I also think the dining staff are amazing. I really think that Smith Dining has been really making a huge effort to try to make dishes that are culturally authentic. They've genuinely made a lot of effort to reach out to students to be like, hey, come teach us like your recipes. We actually do want to make Smith feel like a home for everybody. And so that when you go into the dining halls and we put a dish out, it is something that does feel like home to you. And that's something that I think a lot of other colleges, may not have necessarily taken the time to do. And on the kind of house kitchen thing, I lived in Lamont my first 2 years, and we had a dining hall, but we didn't really have a kitchen. And so I definitely feel now living in the Freedmans, there's more space for having friends over and little more like community building. I mean, Smith provides a lot of different experiences if you want to do that. So there's people, I have friends who are in the co-ops and then they will still cook all together.
Your last point of cultural foods. I remember it was on a Sunday, and on the menu in Checkered Dining, they had plantains, and we eat plantains at home. I freaked out. I had to call my mom, like, they have plantains today, and yeah, I had to take lots more to go back to my room with it. I have made a couple of very good friends at the dining hall, just like, hi, introductions, and that's it. And we're still friends right now. And we always have like meal dates in the dining halls. So it's a really cool place to make friends, to study. I like the ambience as well, like the lights, and it's cozy, and yeah, it's nice.
I want to thank the wonderful students I have here. Thank you so much for making time and being part of this reunion even after the semester has ended. So thank you all so much.